The moment everyone in the office heard the sharp sound of a security badge hitting the polished marble floor, the entire lobby fell silent. Employees stopped typing, receptionists froze behind their desks, and even the elevators seemed to pause. A young single father stood in the middle of the crowd, holding a worn lunch bag in one hand and his daughter's tiny pink backpack in the other. His eyes showed exhaustion after years of struggle, yet his face carried an unexpected calm. The woman who had just fired him folded her arms with confidence, convinced she had crushed the career of another ordinary employee. Instead of begging for another chance, the man simply smiled and quietly said, "Before you celebrate, check who owns this building." In that single moment, everything was about to change forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, honesty, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Heart Kindness Tales. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories that inspire millions around the world. Morning sunlight poured through the towering glass windows of the Hawthorne Business Center, one of the most respected office complexes in the city. Employees hurried through the revolving doors carrying laptops and coffee cups while conversations echoed through the elegant lobby. Among them walked Nolan Mercer, dressed in a neatly pressed but inexpensive shirt, carrying his daughter's backpack before dropping her at school on his way to work. Every morning followed the same routine. He woke before sunrise, prepared breakfast, braided 8-year-old Ivy's hair after watching countless online tutorials, packed her lunch, cleaned their tiny apartment, and somehow still managed to arrive at work before most of his co-workers. Few people knew how difficult his life had become after losing his wife to a sudden illness 4 years earlier. Since then, every smile he gave the world hid sleepless nights, unpaid bills, and endless sacrifices made so his daughter would never feel unloved. Nolan worked as a maintenance supervisor inside the prestigious office tower. To most executives, he was simply another employee wearing a blue uniform. They barely noticed the man who repaired broken elevators before meetings, fixed leaking pipes during storms, and quietly stayed late so every office looked perfect by morning. Yet everyone on the maintenance team respected him because he never asked anyone to do a job he wouldn't do himself. He listened to others, helped new workers learn their tasks, and often shared his own lunch with employees who were struggling financially. His kindness was never loud, but it was constant. On the 32nd floor, Olivia Prescott had recently been promoted to Regional Operations Director. Intelligent and ambitious, she believed discipline mattered more than compassion. Numbers, deadlines, and appearances shaped every decision she made. She admired success but had forgotten that every successful company was built by ordinary people. Since receiving her promotion, she had become determined to eliminate what she considered unnecessary expenses. Maintenance budgets topped her list. One bright Tuesday morning, Ivy's school unexpectedly called Nolan. His daughter had developed a high fever and needed to be picked up immediately. Nolan completed an urgent plumbing repair, informed his immediate supervisor, and rushed to the school. He spent the afternoon sitting beside Ivy in a crowded clinic, gently placing a cool cloth on her forehead while reassuring her that everything would be all right. By evening, her fever had eased, but Nolan arrived at work the next morning only to discover an email summoning him to Olivia's office. She barely looked up from the documents on her desk before informing him that his recent absence reflected poor commitment. Despite his explanation and years of spotless service, she insisted company policy demanded consistency. She accused him of lacking professionalism and claimed the organization needed employees who placed work above personal distractions. Every word landed like another weight on Nolan's already burdened shoulders. Around the office, several co-workers overheard fragments of the conversation but remained silent, afraid of risking their own jobs. When Olivia handed him the termination papers, Nolan looked at the signature line for several quiet seconds. Instead of arguing, he carefully placed the documents on her desk, thanked her for the opportunity to work there, and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, he paused, turned back with remarkable composure, and softly suggested that before making any announcements, she might want to check who actually owned the building. His smile carried no anger, only quiet certainty. Confused but unwilling to appear shaken, Olivia dismissed him with a wave of her hand. Within minutes, rumors spread through every department. Some believed Nolan had finally lost hope. Others assumed his statement was nothing more than wounded pride. Olivia herself laughed when colleagues mentioned it. She believed ownership belonged to a large investment company and saw no reason to investigate further. That afternoon, however, the company's chief executive, Victor Ellsworth, unexpectedly arrived for an unscheduled inspection. The atmosphere instantly shifted. Managers straightened their jackets while department heads rushed through unfinished reports. During a routine discussion about operating costs, Victor casually asked why the maintenance supervisor was absent. Olivia proudly explained that she had terminated an underperforming employee to improve efficiency. Victor's expression changed immediately. He asked for the employee's full name. The room grew unusually quiet when Olivia answered. Victor slowly stood, closed the meeting folder in front of him, and asked everyone to accompany him downstairs. No one understood why the CEO himself seemed disturbed over a maintenance supervisor. As they entered the lobby, Victor approached the receptionist and requested the building's ownership records. Moments later, official documents appeared on the large display screen in the administration office. Beneath several corporate entities stood the name of the primary trust that owned the entire business complex. Mercer Family Foundation. Olivia stared at the screen in disbelief. Victor calmly explained that years earlier, Nolan's late father had built one of the city's largest construction companies. Instead of inheriting enormous wealth for luxury, Nolan had quietly transferred most family assets into charitable trusts after his parents passed away. The foundation invested in commercial properties, including the building where the company rented its headquarters. Nolan never revealed his background because he believed respect should be earned through character rather than privilege. After his wife became ill, he had stepped away from executive life to care for her personally. Once she passed away, he intentionally chose ordinary work that allowed him flexible hours to raise Ivy while living a simple, meaningful life. The silence became almost unbearable. Every employee who had walked past Nolan without noticing him suddenly remembered his kindness. They remembered how he repaired broken desks without complaint, comforted anxious coworkers during difficult days, and treated every cleaner, guard, and executive with equal respect. Olivia felt something far heavier than embarrassment. She realized she had judged an entire human being based solely on a job title. Victor immediately instructed human resources to reverse the termination, but Nolan had already left. Instead of returning home, Nolan had taken Ivy to a nearby park after her doctor's appointment. Sitting on a wooden bench beneath blooming trees, he watched children laugh while Ivy slowly regained her strength. To him, that peaceful afternoon mattered far more than any office position. Wealth had never replaced the happiness he found in simple moments with his daughter. Meanwhile, Victor personally searched for Nolan throughout the city before finally finding him at the park just before sunset. Rather than discussing ownership or business, the CEO sat beside him as an old friend. He apologized sincerely for everything that had happened inside the company and admitted leadership had failed to protect good people. Nolan accepted the apology without bitterness because carrying resentment had never helped anyone heal. The following week, every employee gathered in the main auditorium expecting another corporate announcement. Instead, Victor spoke openly about dignity, humility, and invisible struggles. He explained that every uniform represented someone's family, someone's dreams, and someone's battle that others could not see. Success, he said, meant nothing if kindness disappeared along the journey. Then he invited Nolan onto the stage. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several emotional minutes. Rather than accepting a prestigious executive position, Nolan surprised everyone again. He requested only one thing. He asked the company to establish a family support program for employees facing emergencies involving children, aging parents, or serious illness. No worker, he believed, should ever have to choose between their loved ones and their livelihood. The proposal received immediate approval. Within months, paid emergency family leave, childcare assistance, educational scholarships, and employee counseling became permanent company policies. Productivity increased naturally because workers finally felt respected instead of merely managed. People smiled more often in the hallways. Departments worked together instead of competing against one another. Even customers noticed the positive atmosphere. As for Olivia, she chose not to resign despite her humiliation. Instead, she asked Nolan for the opportunity to learn from her mistake. She began spending time with maintenance crews, receptionists, janitors, and security guards, listening to their experiences for the first time. Slowly, she transformed into the compassionate leader she had once believed impossible. Years later, employees remembered her not for the mistake that nearly destroyed someone's career but for the humility she showed afterward. Ivy watched all these changes with quiet pride. Her father never told her they owned the building. He simply reminded her every evening that true wealth was measured by how many lives became better because of your actions. She carried those words through school, friendships, and eventually adulthood. Sometimes people expected dramatic revenge stories where powerful individuals humiliated those who wronged them. Nolan chose something far more difficult. He chose forgiveness. By refusing to answer cruelty with cruelty, he changed not only one executive but an entire workplace. His greatest victory was never proving he owned the building. It was proving that kindness could rebuild hearts stronger than power ever could.